Hello everyone. Welcome back to Annie's Story Channel. I hope you're having a peaceful evening because tonight's story may change the way you look at abandoned places forever. Our journey begins in a forgotten monastery, hidden deep inside the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. Local villagers avoid this place after sunset. They believe the monks who once lived there never truly left. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. On October 1998, the cold wind rolled through the Carpathian Mountains like a living thing. Dense pine trees stretched endlessly across the hills, hiding cliffs, caves, and forgotten roads swallowed by decades of neglect. Journalist Ethan Brooks had spent nearly 3 years traveling across Europe, documenting abandoned places that locals refused to visit. Most stories ended the same way: old buildings, local legends, a few strange noises, nothing more. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in fear. Fear made ordinary places become extraordinary. Fear sold newspapers. Fear created legends. That was enough for him. Until Romania. It started with an old woman sitting outside a tiny grocery shop in the village of Valny. She noticed Ethan studying a faded map. "You are looking for the monastery." It wasn't a question. Ethan smiled politely. "I've heard it's abandoned." The old woman slowly shook her head. "No," he laughed. "So people still live there?" She stared directly into his eyes. "No one living." The old woman reached into her pocket and pulled out an old wooden cross. It looked centuries old. Its surface was cracked. Dark, almost burned. "Take this." "I don't believe in lucky charms." "It isn't for luck." Her voice became barely louder than a whisper. "It's so they know. You came with permission." Ethan laughed awkwardly. "Appreciate it," but he didn't take the cross. The old woman's smile disappeared. "You will before sunrise." The village fell strangely silent. Even the dogs had stopped barking. For the first time that afternoon, Ethan felt something he couldn't explain. Not fear, not yet, only the uncomfortable feeling that someone was standing directly behind him. He turned. No one, only empty road, only fog, only silence. He looked back toward the old woman. She was already walking away, without saying another word. The drive from the village to the monastery took nearly 40 minutes. At first, the road was paved, then gravel. Then, there was no road at all. Only 2 worn tire tracks disappearing into a forest so dense that even daylight struggled to pass through. Ethan checked the GPS. No signal. His phone no signal, radio nothing, only static. That wasn't unusual. He had been in remote places before, but something about this forest felt different. No birds, no insects, no wind, just silence. The kind of silence that makes your own heartbeat sound too loud. Ethan said, "Beautiful place." He chuckled to himself. Creepy, but beautiful. He grabbed his backpack, his camera, a flashlight, and started walking toward the monastery. At first, he couldn't even see it. The thick fog covered everything. Then, slowly, its silhouette appeared. Towering stone walls, broken stained glass windows, a massive wooden entrance. Slightly open. As if someone had just gone inside. No way. He looked at the old iron gate. It can't still be open after all these years. The gate wasn't just open. It was moving, very slowly. Back and forth. Kriak, kriak. There was no wind. Yet, the gate continued moving by itself. Probably loose hinges. The camera flash illuminated the entrance for less than a second, just enough to reveal something standing inside. A figure, tall, wearing a black monk's robe, its face hidden beneath the hood, perfectly still. He lifted his camera. "Still, that's a great shot." Click, click, click. "Hello," no answer. He raised the flashlight, nothing. The hallway was empty. "Great, now I'm imagining things." He stepped inside. The wooden floor groaned beneath every footstep. Dust floated through the air. Ancient paintings covered the cracked walls. Every single painting showed the same thing. Praying monks, hundreds of them, each one with their heads lowered. Each one, missing their eyes not painted over, scratched out, every single face. What happened here? He reached toward one painting. His fingers touched the canvas, still damp. Impossible. The paint should have dried decades ago. Instead, it felt fresh, like someone had finished painting only minutes earlier. Then, from somewhere deep inside the monastery, came a sound. A bell. Dong. 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 3 times, slow, heavy. Impossible, the monastery had no bell anymore. The tower had collapsed nearly 60 years ago, at least. That's what every history book said. "Okay, who's here?" his voice echoed. No reply. Only the sound of dripping water. Drip, drip, drip. Ethan followed the sound. It led him down a narrow hallway. Every room he passed looked untouched. Old wooden beds. Prayer books, candles, rosaries, everything covered in dust. Except one room. The door stood open. Inside, there wasn't a single layer of dust. Someone, or something, had been there recently. On the table sat a single leather-bound journal. It looked centuries old. The pages had turned yellow with age. Across the front cover, someone had carved 3 words. "Do not read." He smiled. "Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do." He opened the first page. The handwriting was beautiful, almost elegant. It read, "If you are reading this, they already know your name." Ethan frowned. Very funny. He flipped another page. Blank. Another. Blank. Another. Blank. Every page. Empty. Until the final page. Only one sentence. Written in fresh red ink, not dried. Still wet. "Welcome, Ethan." "No," he stepped backward. "My name. I never told anyone I was coming." Then, without warning, the heavy wooden door behind him slammed shut. The room plunged into darkness. His flashlight flickered, once, twice, 3 times, and then a whisper, soft, close, right beside his ear. Not in Romanian, not in Latin, but in perfect English. "We've been waiting for you," before we find out who or what was waiting for Ethan. Let's take a very quick break. If you enjoy watching horror stories late at night, home security is something worth thinking about. A reliable CCTV security system can help you keep an eye on your home while you're asleep or away. And if you ever find yourself walking outside after dark, whether you're camping, traveling, or dealing with a power outage, a bright tactical flashlight is one of those tools you'll be glad you have. I've placed my recommended products in the description below and in the pinned comment. Now, turn the lights back off, because the worst is yet to come. The whisper disappeared. Almost as quickly as it came, Ethan spun around. His flashlight swept across every corner of the room. Nothing, just cracked stone walls, old wooden shelves, and the leather journal lying open on the table. But something had changed. The final page was no longer blank except for his name. New words were slowly appearing, not written by a hand, not by a pen. The letters spread across the page one by one, as if invisible fingers were carving them into the paper. No, this isn't possible. The sentence continued growing until it filled the page. "Go to the chapel." Then another line appeared. "Do not be late." And beneath that, "They are already praying." "I'm leaving." Then, without anyone touching it, the lock clicked. The door slowly opened inward, not outward, inward. As if someone on the other side had invited him to leave. He slammed the journal shut and reached for the door. The handle wouldn't move. He pulled harder, still locked. He threw his shoulder against the wood. "Nothing, thank you," he laughed nervously. "I've officially lost my mind." He stepped into the hallway. It wasn't the same hallway. The paintings were gone. The broken candles were gone. The dust. Gone, everything looked clean, as though monks still lived there. Fresh candles burned along the walls. Their flames didn't move, not even slightly. There was still no wind. What? No, I came through here. He checked his watch. 7:42 p.m. Only 20 minutes had passed since entering the monastery, or so he thought. Then his phone suddenly lit up. No signal. But the screen displayed something else. Date, October 14, 1963. That's impossible. He restarted the phone. The date remained the same. October 14, 1963. At the end of the hallway stood a pair of massive oak doors. Behind them, he could hear voices, not talking, not screaming, singing a deep, slow, ancient prayer, dozens of voices, all perfectly synchronized. Unknown voices. Kyrie eleison. Christ eleison. Kyrie eleison. Ethan couldn't understand every word, but he recognized enough Latin to know. This wasn't an ordinary prayer. There was something wrong. Every verse sounded backward. Almost as if the prayer had been reversed, not worship, something else. I should record this. He lifted his camera. Pressed record. The red light blinked. Recording. He slowly pushed the heavy chapel doors open. The room beyond was enormous. Hundreds of wooden benches. Towering stone pillars. Ancient stained glass windows. At the far end stood an altar. And kneeling before it were more than 50 monks. Every one of them dressed in black robes. Heads bowed. Hands folded. Completely motionless. Hello, no response. The chanting continued. He took another step. The wooden floor creaked. Every chant stopped instantly. Silence. Then, very slowly, every monk tilted his head, not turning their bodies, only their heads, until every hood faced Ethan. None of them had moved their knees, or their shoulders, only their necks. No. The nearest monk stood. Slowly, painfully, bones cracked beneath the robe. Then another. Then another. Soon, all 50 figures stood silently facing him. Still, none of them lifted their heads high enough for Ethan to see their faces. I'm leaving, he backed toward the door. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, then he bumped into something behind him. Someone, he turned. Another monk, standing inches away. He hadn't been there before. Stay away from me, he shoved the figure. The monk fell. The hood slipped away. Ethan froze. There was no face, no eyes, no mouth. Only smooth gray skin. Like melted wax. Then, from somewhere inside that featureless head, came a voice. Soft, almost kind. Faceless monk said to Ethan, "You are late." Every candle inside the chapel extinguished at the exact same moment. Darkness swallowed the room. Ethan's flashlight was now the only light left. Its beam shook violently in his trembling hands. He pointed it toward the monks. They were gone, every one of them. The benches were empty. The altar stood alone. The chapel was silent once more. Where did they go? Then, his flashlight illuminated the floor. Fresh footprints. Wet, bare feet, dozens of them, leading, not away from him but circling him, as if 50 invisible people were standing around him. Only inches away. Watching. Waiting. Breathing. Ethan could hear it now. Not with his ears. Inside his head. Whispers. Hundreds of whispers. All repeating the same sentence. Join the prayer. Join the prayer. Join the prayer. Ethan dropped to one knee and covered his ears. It didn't help. The voices only grew louder. Until one whisper spoke differently. It wasn't chanting. It was warning him. Unknown child's voice. Don't let them hear you pray. Ethan looked around. There was no child. Only darkness. Only footprints. Only silence. And then, far beneath the chapel floor, something enormous. Knocked once. Boom. The stone beneath Ethan's feet trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then came a second knock. Even louder. Boom. Whatever was beneath the monastery had just awakened. The second impact echoed through the monastery. Boom. This time, the floor beneath Ethan's feet cracked. A thin line spread across the ancient stone, like lightning crawling through the earth. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Somewhere in the darkness, rocks tumbled. Whatever was beneath the monastery was moving. No, 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 no. He stumbled backward, clutching his flashlight with one hand and his camera with the other. His breathing became faster. Every instinct told him the same thing. Run. Now. But before Ethan could take another step, the whisper returned. Not from behind him. Not from beside him. This time, it came from directly beneath his feet. Hundreds of voices, speaking together, softly, patiently, almost lovingly. Come down. I'm leaving. He turned toward the chapel doors. They were gone. Only a solid stone wall remained. The exit had vanished. Panic surged through him. He searched every corner with his flashlight. No windows. No doors. Only the altar. And beneath it, a narrow staircase he hadn't noticed before. It spiraled downward into complete darkness. On the first step, someone had placed a single candle. Its flame burned with a deep blue light. I'm not going down there. As soon as he said those words, the candle went out. Darkness swallowed everything for 3 long seconds. There was no light, no sound, no movement. Then, his flashlight switched itself back on. The beam pointed downward, not because Ethan aimed it. His own hand had moved, slowly against his will, toward the staircase. What's happening to me? He tried to lower his arm, he couldn't. One step, then another, then another. His feet descended the stone staircase, not because he chose to, but because something else had chosen for him. The air grew colder with every step. The smell changed. Not dust, not mold. Blood, old blood. Iron filled his lungs with every breath. Finally, the staircase ended. Before him lay a vast underground chamber, far larger than the monastery itself. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. Stone pillars stretched endlessly. In the center of the chamber stood an enormous circular pit. Around it knelt hundreds of monks. Not 50. Hundreds. Silent. Motionless. Dear God, every monk slowly lifted a candle. Hundreds of blue flames illuminated the chamber. Their faces were exactly the same. Smooth. Featureless. Like wax. No eyes. No mouths. No noses. Only blank flesh. Then, one figure stepped forward. Unlike the others, his robe was white. Ancient. Torn. He carried a weathered wooden cross. Unlike the faceless monks, he had a face. Old. Kind. Tired. He looked directly at Ethan. The white monk, Ethan Brooks. Ethan, how do you know my name? The white monk, because we have been waiting for someone who could still leave. The old monk glanced toward the pit. A low growl echoed from below. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried an impossible weight, as though the earth itself was breathing. The white monk, long ago, we sealed something beneath this monastery. It was never meant to escape. Ethan, what is it? The white monk, we never gave it a name. Names give things power, so we buried both, its body, and its name. The old monk's voice trembled. For centuries, our order prayed day and night without stopping, until one prayer was spoken incorrectly. The seal broke, and one by one, we disappeared. Ethan asking somewhat fearfully, "So, you're ghosts?" The white monk said, "No, we are prisoners." The ground shook violently. A deafening crack split the chamber. The circular pit widened. A wave of freezing air burst upward. From somewhere deep below, two enormous eyes opened. Not human, not animal, just two burning amber lights, far beneath the darkness. Watching, waiting, ancient. Ethan, oh my God. The white monk, "Don't look into its eyes." Ethan looked away just in time. The faceless monks began chanting once more. Their voices rose together. The chamber trembled. The blue flames burned brighter. The old monk thrust the wooden cross into Ethan's hands. The white monk, "Listen carefully. When you leave, never speak about this place. Inside these walls, never repeat the prayer and never return." The old monk smiled. A sad, peaceful smile. Then he stepped toward the pit. One by one, every faceless monk followed him. Not in fear, not in panic, but willingly, as guardians returning to their post. Their chanting grew louder. The amber eyes slowly closed. The chamber began collapsing. Stone crashed around Ethan. The staircase reappeared. He ran, faster than he had ever run before. The monastery shook behind him. He burst through the front doors, just as the first rays of dawn touched the mountains. He collapsed on the cold ground outside. When he looked back, the monastery stood exactly as it had the day before. Silent, abandoned, empty, as though nothing had happened. Weeks later, Ethan returned home. He immediately reviewed the footage from his camera. The entire night had been recorded. The gate, the hallway, the journal, the chapel, everything, except whenever Ethan appeared on screen. He was alone. No monks, no whispers, no white-robed guardian. Nothing. Just Ethan, walking through an empty ruin, talking to people who weren't there. He sat frozen in front of the monitor. Then, his camera played one final clip. A clip Ethan never remembered recording. The lens pointed toward the monastery entrance at sunrise. For just 1 second, a white-robed monk stood in the doorway. He smiled, raised one finger to his lips, as if asking Ethan to keep the promise. Then, the recording ended forever. So, what do you think about tonight's story? Was Ethan truly trapped inside a cursed monastery? Or was everything nothing more than the terrifying effects of isolation and fear? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever visited an abandoned church, monastery, castle, or any place that left you with an unexplainable feeling, share your story with us. Who knows? It might inspire a future episode on this channel. If you enjoyed tonight's journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Until then, stay safe, sleep well, and remember, some doors are abandoned for a reason. Good night.